Alright, welcome to Dorm Boots. We're just going to get right into it. Yeah. Where was my page? Oh, and I've lost my page. No! Okay. There we are. Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Bhutan saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi bhutam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi bhutam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Anati pata gramani skaparam samadhyami. Adinnadana gramani skaparam samadhyami. Samadhyami. Suramirayamanyam ammanatana Brahmani skam param samadhyami. Today we'll just do a quick 5-minute meditation. For those who want to do a longer meditation, either after the live portion is finished, or if you're watching this after we're done recording, do feel free to either pause here or just wait until afterwards and meditate as you see fit, for however long you see appropriate. And the thing that we're going to be talking about today is we've seen a lot, like, there's a lot of acrimony going on around the world, and a lot of people arguing about a lot of stuff. And I thought today might be a good chance for us to kind of go over the Buddha and his experience with kind of arguing, with people arguing, and what he did, which, surprise, surprise, he wasn't really a fan of that. So we're going to be going over the Quarrel of Kosambi. The Quarrel of Kosambi, where a bunch of monks were arguing with each other, stabbing each other with piercing words, basically insulting each other, all this, like, not monk stuff. We're not going to go over the text, per se. I want to go over the verse portion, because I think this part matters more. And we see a lot of what he said in here echoed throughout other passages, particularly in the Dhammapada. We see a bunch of these. And I think it's important for us to kind of consider, I want us to take heart, but I also want us to be real about, like, what are we supposed to do when people are arguing? How are we supposed to guide them? How are we supposed to advise them? How are we supposed to guide ourselves? How are we supposed to live in a situation where, like, constantly arguing is kind of the thing that's happening? So we are going to just read the stanza portion, the verse portion, so you can kind of get an idea of what the Buddha is talking about here. And the Buddha the Buddha utters these verses specifically, when he had wandered for alms in Kosambi and returned after his meal, he took his bowl and his outer robe, and while still standing, so he didn't even sit down to meditate with the monks. So he's basically saying, like, you're not even worthy at this point for, like, I'm not going to be a part of this. I don't want anything to do with what you people are doing with this quarreling. And he says, when many voices shout at once, none considers himself a fool. Though the Sangha is being split, none thinks himself to be at fault. They have forgotten thoughtful speech, talking obsessed by words alone. Uncurbed their mouths, they bawl at will. None knows what leads him so to act. He abused me, he struck me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who harbor thoughts like these, enmity will never be allayed. For in this world, enmity has never been allayed by enmity. It is always allayed by non-hatred. So hatred doesn't get fixed by hating more stuff. Hatred gets fixed by non-hatred. So it is allayed by non-hatred. That is the fixed and ageless law. Those others who do not recognize that here we should restrain ourselves, but those wise ones who realize this at once end all their hatred. Breakers of bones and murderers, those who steal cattle, horses, wealth, and those who pillage the entire realm. When even these can act together, why can you not do so too? And this is a direct, like, he is really coming down hard on the monks and saying, look, these thieves, these robbers, these killers, these people who are doing all of these dumb criminal acts, they can figure out how to work together. Why can't you? Like, imagine you're a monk in the Buddha's assembly and you hear that. Like, you know you've goofed when the Buddha comes out and says, murderers can figure out how to work together, but you can't? Yeah. The Buddha really did not have a lot of patience for monks quarreling over stupid, pointless stuff, which is what they were arguing about. It really didn't matter. So, if one can find a worthy friend, a virtuous, steadfast companion, then overcome all threats of danger and walk with him content and mindful. But if one finds no worthy friend, no virtuous, steadfast companion, then as a king leaves his conquered realm, walk like a tusker in the woods alone. Better it is to walk alone. There is no companionship with fools. Walk alone and do no evil, at ease like a tusker in the woods. He's talking about elephants here. Tuskers are basically elephants. So, let's kind of give this some consideration as we're going about figuring out how to work with those who we disagree with. Is what the Buddha, like, is the Buddha saying we should sit there and go out and, like, get involved in the fray and be like, well, you're just a stupid so-and-so, you just are wrong and you're bad and this is the dumb stuff you're doing? Do we do that? Because we could. Like, we could get into Facebook arguments all day, every day. In fact, I'm reminded heavily of the meme where they have the Buddha sitting teaching people, and he's, somebody is asking, like, well, what's the meaning of enlightenment? And the Buddha is like, not getting into arguments on Facebook, right? Obviously not in an actual Buddha quote, but, like, you kind of get the idea, right? Like, I'm probably butchering that. In fact, I think I am. Go back and find it for yourselves. It's super easy to do. I just don't have, I'm not going to do that in the middle of the service. But yeah, the Buddha's sitting there like, he's sitting there saying, like, if we're arguing about this dumb stuff, like, if we're arguing about this pointless, disputing just to puff ourselves up, because that's really the key here. Both sides don't think that they're wrong when they're doing something incredibly hurtful. Both sides don't think themselves fools when all they're doing is arguing piddly stuff. And that's really the key here, right? They may be right, they may be wrong, doesn't matter. What matters is they're sitting there propping up their own little egos, puffing themselves up, and hurting everybody else in the process. And that's the kicker. That's what's really the wrong part here. That's what the Buddha is saying. No, we don't engage in that. We don't do that. That's not our thing. We just don't play that game. Not here. All right? When many voices shout at once, none considers himself a fool. Right? We have a lot of voices. There are a lot of voices out there across every single platform that one can see, whether this is Blue Sky or Reddit or Facebook or True Social or any of those other ones, or X or what used to be Twitter. All of those platforms, every single one of them, to include Discord, which is very aptly named because there's a lot of Discord that goes on in there, surprisingly, not surprisingly. All of these platforms, there's so many voices, all of them arguing, all of them trying to be right, all of them trying to puff themselves up, and every single one of them, if you ask them, hey, are you an idiot? They will get offended and say, no, I'm not, right? I'm right. They're wrong. Well, puffing yourself up really is the key here. Whether or not they're right or wrong, that's a totally separate matter. It's the puffing oneself up and getting inflamed and getting involved and invested in the argument itself and being right at any cost, winning at any cost. This is what the Buddha is saying. That's pretty pointless. Like, there's no value to that. And that's what the Buddha, when the monks are doing this, the monks are clearly not following what the Buddha is teaching, which is why he calls them out so vigorously, right? The breakers of bones and murderers, those who steal cattle, horses, wealth, those who pillage the entire realm. When even these can act together, why can you not do so too? Why can't we work together? Why do we have to sit there and puff ourselves up? That's what the Buddha is saying. Why do we have to try and inflame ourselves and inflate our egos and make ourselves look good and better? It's not helpful. It's not skillful. It's not useful. Being right doesn't help. Listening, working together, and trying to figure out how to work together, that's useful. That's skillful. That's helpful. That's harmless. That's wholesome. That's what the Buddha is teaching. Not getting puffed up about some ridiculous nonsense, right? Which is why he also, like that whole last portion where he's talking about what kinds of friends one should find. Find a virtuous friend. Find a, what we call which is actually in chaplaincy studies, like we would probably call ourselves Kalyana Mitra, right? The admirable friend, or the good friend, right? Somebody who can give you that good guidance and help you along the path. Find those as your friends, not these idiots who are arguing back and forth again and again and again. Yes, it's important that we have compassion for those who are sitting there doing the arguing, because they are stuck in their own kind of samsara, but they are not the ones that we follow. They are the ones who, when they're ready, we will guide. But if they're not ready, if all they're going to do is sit there and argue again and again, picking this tiny little thing and that tiny little thing, and finding this little error and that little error, finding this little problem with this and that, none of that's useful. You find the good friend who can guide you and say, okay, if you're looking for the answer to this, there's your path. That's what you do. Right? And that's what the Buddha is talking about when he says, find you a good friend, walk with them. If you can't find a good friend, walk alone. It's better to be an elephant in the middle of the jungle doing his own thing than it is to walk with bad friends, to walk with friends who are going to lead you into more arguments, into more disputes, into more inflamed egos, into more, arguing in debates and utter nonsense, right? There's a lot of that going on. We don't need to be adding to it. And if you can't find friends who are going to help you not do that, better to walk on your own. The Buddha is pretty clear there, right? Because, as he says very clearly, right, hatred is never fixed by more hatred. Hatred is only fixed by non-hatred. You don't, when it comes to this inflamed ego, this, this sense that I'm going to argue and I'm going to be right, and I'm going to pick apart my opponents and stab them with verbal daggers, right? Obviously not real daggers, one would hope, but verbal daggers at the very least, right? If you're going to do that, if you're going to fight fire with fire, if you're going to fight arguments with arguments, if you're going to fight, inflamed egos with inflamed egos, you're not going to fix the problem. You're not going to get any closer to the goal, and you're not going to act in ways that are wholesome, that are skillful, that are blameless, and that are praised by the wise. The only way to do that is to go and move into non-hatred, right? To move deliberately and specifically into non-arguing, right? It's not about being right or being wrong. It's about, I'm not going to give in to the very easy temptation to puff myself up and hurt others because I think I'm right. There's a time to be right and there's a time to be wrong, and we are all right sometimes and we are all wrong sometimes. And it's completely okay to call yourself out on that. It's completely okay to acknowledge that. It's completely okay to recognize, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I need to ask somebody who's wise enough to do, right? Maybe I need to, instead of arguing my position and saying, I am right, maybe I need to take a second look. Maybe I need to go back and reflect and contemplate in my meditation and figure out what I was doing, all right? Because sometimes we're all gonna be wrong. Sometimes we're all gonna be, all of us at some point, let me rephrase. All of us at some point are going to be right about some things, not everything. All of us at some point are going to be wrong about some things, but not everything. It's figuring out where we are and trying to reflect on that and to understand that, yes, I, as a fallible human being, will have those issues. I will have those concerns, and I will make some mistakes along the way. I need to have compassion for myself, but I need to go and make sure that I'm working to correct those mistakes, rather than to sit there and try and pretend like they don't exist, trying to pretend like I am like I have all the answers and I'm super perfect, because I'm not. I'm not. I know that, right? We're all in that same boat. When we recognize that, and when we can take that guidance, when we can take that wisdom from others and say, okay, this is useful. I can put this into practice. I can use this to further myself along the path. Boom, there it is, right? We do that by finding good friends who can give us that guidance, who can help us with that. And that's how we do that. Rather than being stabbing each other with words and verbal daggers to the point where we have to sit there and say, look, these murderers can figure this out. They can work together, but we can't. We in the Dharma Boots community, we in the world, we can't figure this out, but criminals can. When we're not them, we're not doing all of these criminal things. Maybe it's time for us to reevaluate. Maybe it's time for us to sit there and say, look, let's not be like them. Let's not be like let's not be like those who have committed these heinous acts, but can work together. Let's instead find ways that we can work together without doing that. Let's find ways that we, as a whole, can make things better. I suppose I'm going to end there. So, all right. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, dhammam saranam gacchami, sangham saranam gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, Dutiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddham saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi dhammam saranam gacchami, Tatiyampi sangham saranam gacchami. Anati pata gramani skapram Okay, thanks for watching, Dark Roots. We'll see you guys next time.